You wake up, it's really early, you turn on the shower, and then you go to hop in the shower, and when you get in, it's absolutely frigid. You have no hot water. How do we avoid this scenario? Well, today, we're gonna talk about how to get 12 years out of the life of your water heater. Here at Yarbrough & Sons, we replace hundreds of water heaters every year and come across probably thousands. So everything that we're talking about is coming from our experience. So why don't water heaters last as long as they used to? That's a really valid question, and a lot of it has to do with different manufacturing standards and the water chemical makeup in your area. Today, water heaters are made with more cost-efficient materials. They're designed to improve efficiency, which means thinner materials. And when you have thinner materials, breakdowns happen faster. Another point that you could be making is, Will, I live in a house that was built in the 80s. I've never had to replace my water heater. That's why I expect them to last longer than they do, because I have had to replace mine. Getting 12, 15 years out of your water heater is completely possible if regular maintenance is done and you've had the really right conditions for it. So congratulations, you've won the lottery. But to be honest, a lot of homes being built now and in areas that we find have harder water, and that water is harder on the systems, which means that we have to be a little bit more proactive about how we take care of our systems to optimize and maximize the life of your water heater. What causes water heaters to fail? Well, whenever you have water versus metal, water's gonna win the battle every single time. And a lot of times when you have water in a system, that carries all sorts of minerals, calcium with that water, and over time plus heat, you get a lot of the calcification. If you've ever seen a video of a water heater that's been like cut open, or you can see the insides and it looks like crystals are forming on the inside, that's calcium buildup on those water heaters. That's really corrosive, which is what leads to their failure a lot of times. And some of this stuff can be prevented by regular maintenance and regular flushes. All of that to say is that water is just naturally corrosive. So you add some heat, some high pressure, you put it in a tank, we've got a cocktail of problems waiting right there. So we have to mention the most common replaced part of a water heater, which is the anode rod. Anode rods are super important for water heaters. Just to put it simply, it's a rod that goes in your water heater that attracts the corrosion to the rod and keeps the rest of the tank safe. So you really want to be replacing this rod every 2 to 3 years. If you're thinking that, hey, I have never heard of an anode rod, nor have I ever replaced one or had one replaced, that's okay. It's still not too late to get it replaced. It's just the most common part of a water heater that needs to be replaced. And if you've been in a house and have never had your water heater checked, your anode rod probably needs to be replaced. And so if you want to extend the life of your water heater, getting that replaced is the first step. The second most important thing, aside from replacing your anode rod, is draining your water heater. Whenever you drain your water heater, all that stuff that I was talking about before, the minerals that build up, the calcium that builds up on that water heater because we've added heat and pressure to the system. When you drain that tank, a lot of those minerals and calcium are going out with the drain. So whenever you drain it, you're really saving the life of not only the anode rod, but also the interior lining of the tank itself. And so you're gonna, again, do the next best thing other than replacing the anode rod is gonna be draining that tank, making sure all those minerals and chemicals are out of the system so that it can replenish itself and kind of have a fresh reset. Okay, so this next part can be a little bit complicated, but we're gonna do our best to make it really simple, pretty easy. At the risk of trying to over-explain things, I'd much rather try to keep it simple. But when it comes to temperature and pressure and installation, all three of these things work in tandem together. So with temperature, we really find that hot water heaters do their best and have their longest life when the temperature is set to 120 degrees. If the temperature is set to higher than 120 degrees, that heat builds up pressure in the tank. And when pressure in the tank is built up and that is sustained over a long period of time, wear and tear starts to happen on that tank because it was not designed to handle super high pressures for a really long period of time. So setting that temperature back to 120 helps reduce the pressure on the system, which helps the system last longer. Now, whenever you are going, okay, all right, so we did all that, what about installation? So a lot is true the same for water tanks as it is for air conditioning. We say that 80% of an air conditioner's life is established on the install, and the same thing is pretty true for water heaters. 80% of that system's life is going to be established on the install. Having a quality team going out there, making sure the system is set correctly, but also that the temperatures are adjusted accordingly and that you don't have any sort of weird power fluctuations or any sort of weird temperature or pressure issues, and also that the safety mechanisms behind the water heater are in place so that if there is a failure of some sort, that you're not catastrophically ruining a ceiling or a floor or anything like that. So when it comes to temperatures, pressures, and installations, all three of those things working together help extend the life of that system so that you're getting 12, 15, maybe more years out of that system. Next, I want to talk about warning signs that your water heater might be failing. Generally, if the water is discolored, you turn on your sink and you turn on that hot water and the water's kind of a funky color, that's generally a pretty good sign that something's not quite right to the internal workings of the hot water heater. If you're hearing popping noises or any sort of unnatural noises coming from that hot water heater, that's going to be a pretty early indication that you at least need to have it serviced or maintained or looked at, so that way something more catastrophic isn't going to happen in the future. Lastly, if you go out to the water heater and you notice any sort of corrosion at the base, any sort of water dripping into the emergency drain pan or on the floor, that's a really good sign that something is at or is nearing failure, that you need to get someone certified to come look at that hot water system so that way everything's taken care of. So what do you do if your water heater starts leaking? That can cause a lot of panic and maybe a lot of frustration and fear around what do we do? This hot water heater's leaking, there's water everywhere. So just gonna take a breath for a second and we're gonna talk about some things to do first. The first thing that you wanna do is shut off the cold water to your water heater. Very first thing. Second thing is shut off the power source. So if you have an electric water heater, unplug it from the wall, or if you have gas, turn off the gas valve. There should be a gas cock next to your water heater if there's gas going into the system. Turn that off so that you're cutting off any sort of heating supply to the system. Next, you wanna try to drain the system just as effectively and efficiently as possible so that we're relieving pressure from the system so that you can buy time for someone to get out there and take a look at what's going on. If you do these things calmly and consistently, there's no reason to panic. Water heaters do not typically explode. So, quick recap, can you get 12 years out of your water heater? The short answer is yes. Now, that being said, under the right conditions, you can get 12 years out of your system. You need to replace the anode rod. That's really critical into making sure your system lasts as long as possible. You need to drain your system once every year or so to ensure that you're getting all of the fluids and calcium flushed out. You really need to be sure to be on regular maintenance. That's going to really help extend the life of that system and point out any sort of inconsistencies or issues beforehand. Also with maintenance, that helps ensure that the system will last as long as it can, but it doesn't completely eliminate the possibility of some sort of failure where it does need to be replaced. You're just setting yourself up for the best scenario possible to get 12 years or more out of the life of your water heater. The very last point to all of this, the life of your water heater really depends on the quality of the installation. To make sure that system is installed correctly so that it can have the best life possible for you and your family. So, if you live in our area, call Yarbrough & Sons. We'd love to come out and install your water heater correctly. If you don't live in our area, make sure you call a reputable company, someone that you trust, that has good reviews and has a good relationship to the community that you're in so that they can do a quality installation and set your house up for success. If you want an estimate on what it would cost to replace your water heater and you're in the Oklahoma City metro area, scan the QR code and we would love to be able to give you an estimate. Guys, if this has been helpful or if you have questions, leave them down in the comments. We would love to respond to you and begin that dialogue. Really hope this was helpful. Have a great day. See ya.